844-500-4242. And we've been talking a lot the last couple months about the disarray and the chaos and the turmoil at the Massachusetts State Republican Committee. It's just supposed to be a vessel for pushing money through the party, from the national party, through contributors, et cetera, to the candidates, electing people. And it just became a total dysfunctional disaster under the chairmanship of Jim Lyons. I call him Jim Jones Lyons. He turned the whole party into a political death cult. He took over 4 years ago, $700,000 in the bank. He was ousted last month as chairman after losing every single important election in the last two cycles. And he left the party $600,000 in debt. So he went from $700,000 in the black to $600,000 in the red while losing every single race, some of which he barely even contested, like the governor's race last fall, like the 80% increase in the income tax. He didn't even solicit mail-in ballots. But anyway, it was a total disaster. And he left a bunch of unpaid bills. And we've been trying to talk to some of the people who were victimized by the total fiscal mismanagement of Jim Jones Lyons and his ilk at the state committee. This Kool-Aid cult. And a bunch of candidates, what they do is, when they want to put out mailers, they want to take advantage of the lower rates for the U.S. Postal Service offers to nonprofits. And so what they do is they get the state committee, which is a nonprofit, either Democrat or Republican, to buy the to actually send out the mailings for them. And all they have to do is send the check to the party, and the party pays the printer and pays the U.S. Postal Service. That's the way it's always worked. It's never been a problem. It's like giving money to a teller in a bank. The teller doesn't steal the money. Well, guess what happened in the last cycle? The Republican State Committee took the money from all these candidates. We talked to Sheriff Hodgson, former Sheriff Hodgson from Bristol County last week. They took the money and they just gave it to we don't even know what they spent it on. We suspect they spent it on Jeff Deal's doomed campaign for governor when he was barely campaigning. But the money was not given to the printers. And so these candidates, some of whom lost, are stuck holding the bag. And one of them was Lenny Mirra. And he was a state rep for a number of years from Essex County. He's from Georgetown. He ended up losing in a recount by one vote. One vote. How pitiful is that? But we'll talk to him about that sometime. But we wanted to talk to him today about what happened with his printer and how he did what he always does, which is pay the state committee to pay the printer and pay the U.S. Postal Service. Lenny Mirra, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Hey, Howie, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
And first of all, we're very sorry about what happened to you in this recount.
Well, that was a complete fiasco as well, and there's a big story behind it to tell, and hopefully someday in the near future, we'll have a chance to come back on the Howie Carr Show to explain what really happened, because no newspaper has yet printed a story about what really happened with that election and the subsequent recount. But it was totally botched. It was just typical Beacon Hill corruption. And it was a partisan stunt, really, more than anything else. And hopefully someday in the near future we'll get to talk about it.
It wasn't like what we've seen in the 2020 election. By the way, it's just different. It's just screw ups that weren't corrected, right? That's what
I truly believe that this is not some sort of conspiracy. There was not a bunch of massive fraud. There was no tampering with voting machines. Nothing of the sort, Howie. No, believe me, it was just simple human error. But the evidence showing this is sitting in town hall, at the town clerk's office, and Democrats refuse to let this evidence come out. They don't want anyone to see it, and they've been fighting since day one to make sure nobody sees these contested ballots or the unspoiled ballots. that they were allowed to unspoil.
And of course, you got next to no help from the Republican State Committee, which is again one of their duties that in the past they always did before Lyons took over. But I want to talk about the printing situation. How much is your printer not been paid by the Massachusetts Republican Party under Lyons?
Well, that's a very good question. No one really knows, because you described the story very accurately. The state party has a mail permit or stamp. Some people call it an indicia that you can use to do a mass mailing to your entire district. And remember, a state rep has over 40,000 people in their district. That's a lot of mailings. And so with this stamp, you can send out a mailer for about, I think, 10 or 12 cents per household. It's a good deal. And so we write up a mailer, the party approves it, and then they send you this bill saying, here's how much it's going to cost. And you send them, the candidate sends them a check. So I dug up my 2 checks in October. I sent one in early October for about $5,500, and then another one in later October for over $7,000 from my campaign to the Mass GOP. And they're supposed to pay the printers, the vendors, and the postage for this mailing. The mailings went out. I know the vendors did the work. I know the printers did their work because the mailers arrived. But now all these contractors, vendors, and suppliers are coming out of the woodwork saying they never got paid. And I don't know where the money went. Meanwhile, we get emails from the Mass State Party. I got one that said that I have to report $18,000 in what they call in-kind contributions. And I can tell you, Howie, I never got a dime from the State Party, not under this leadership or prior leadership. I was in office for 10 years. I never got anything from the State Party. But now they're saying I got $18,000 with in-kind contributions. And I don't know where that money went, but it sure didn't go to me. I cut these checks. The checks have been cashed, and God knows where the money went.
Who do you blame? I mean, who do you think got the money? I mean, there's $600,000 in unpaid bills run up under Jim Jones, Lyons.
Yeah, that's a great question. No one seems to have an answer. One place we know where money went, it was used to dig up dirt, not just on Maura Healey, but on other Republicans. I mean, how awful is that? Our party is tiny to begin with. It's in a pitiful state. And here our state party is spending time, money, and resources to dig up dirt on other Republicans. I mean, you can't make this up. It's just a fiasco.
Well, how bad do you think this state committee, the Republican State Committee in Massachusetts, was run compared to other state committees in either party?
Yeah, I've said this a million times, Howie. I think Massachusetts, the Mass GOP is probably the worst-run party in America today. I can't think of a worse-run party. And listen, I'm not here to bash Jim Lyons. He's a friend of mine. I still consider him a friend. He and his wife, Bernadette, have been nothing but kind and gracious to me since day one. But, it's time to put that friendship aside and admit we got a severe problem with the Mass GOP. It has to be the worst-run party in the country. Other states, they didn't see a red wave in that last election, but a lot of them saw at least a red trickle. They became a little bit more red. Massachusetts saw a blue wave. We became a lot more blue as a result of that last election, not more red. And, this, like I said, this is not to bash Jim Lyons. We're just looking at the record, something you've talked about on your show a million times. Just look at the one-loss record, and
he lost everything. He lost everything.
Exactly. So, at some point you have to put friendship in the back seat and say, look, we've got a problem with the party, and it's time for a change. And so, I don't know the new chair, Amy Cannavale, all that well, but boy, she's got her work cut out for her. She really does. We're in a bad place, and it seems like with every passing day, the news only gets worse and worse, at least financially. So,
what are you gonna? What do you tell your printers? I mean, that didn't get paid. I mean, you gave the check to your friend Jim Lyons, and now the money was used for something else, and nobody even knows what it was used for. I mean, what do you tell Jim Lyons? What do you tell the printers?
Well, the printers haven't been calling us, the candidates, because they understand that they were contracted to the state party, not directly with the candidates. And, some of them, I think, are kind of hesitant to make too much of a fuss, but they want to continue to do business with the state party. But, this needs to be hashed out. And it's not going to end well. I think things will get a little bit worse before they start to get better.
What do you say to Jim Lyons for taking your money and not paying the printers?
Like I said, I'm not here to bash him, but I would say to him, if I did talk to Jim, the results are in. It's been like, 4 years? And
Yeah.
the party's not going in a good direction. And there's no reason to believe, Howie, that it's going to get better next year or next election. I don't see how anyone can possibly believe that it would. And, listen, that side of the party wanted a chance to run the party for a long time now, right? They contended that it was in the hands of rhinos for all these years. And so they got their chance to run it. It's been 4 years. And, they tried to take the party in a certain direction. Good for them for trying, but it's clearly not working. I mean, this is not my opinion. It's not the Howie Carr opinion either. It's the one-loss record. And, the party our standing, our image, our reputation is in tatters. I don't think it's ever been worse. So clearly, a change was needed, and I really hope Amy Cannavale comes through.
All right, Lenny, Mirra, Bill Parcells used to say, "You are what your record says you are," and Jim Lyons'
exactly
record
right.
is zero. And however many races there were, they lost a dozen or more seats in the legislature, 3 sheriffs, a DA. They didn't win a single congressional seat. They didn't win a single governor's council race. They didn't win a single statewide office. Total disaster across the board, and they lost all that money. They left the people that are picking up the pieces with a $600,000 bill for expenses they can't explain what it was used for. It's horrible.
Like I said, all of that is completely true, and like I said, I just don't see how it gets better next year or next election unless we make some major changes. So, this was the first step, Howie. Hopefully, the party takes a step in the right direction going forward.
Thanks, Lenny, for being on with us. I'm sorry you lost. I'm really sorry you lost, and I'm sorry that your people that you did business with got stiffed, and I hope they get their money. I hope everybody gets their money out of this before it's all over. Thank you. That's Lenny Mirra, the former state rep from Essex County, from Georgetown. He lost by 1 vote. It was the Republican Party in Massachusetts picked a bad year to commit suicide under Jim Jones Lyons.